Hey, morning, everyone. We'll just give it a couple minutes for everyone to trickle in. Thanks for joining, though. Right. Some more people joining. I think we'll give it about maybe 1 or 2 minutes, couple minutes, and then we'll rock and roll. Once again, if you're just joining, we're just going to give it another maybe minute or so and let some more people join, and then we'll get started. So. Morning, everyone. What do you think, Glenn? You think you're ready to get going?
Sure, I'm ready.
All right, cool. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining the Pump Up Your Success webinar with TRC's AESAP program. Just a quick introduction. My name is Andy Gustafson. I help run the AESAP program through PG&E. We also have on the line, we got Glenn here. You want to do a quick intro, Glenn?
Sure, I'm Glenn LaPalme. I'm the engineering manager for the third-party programs in California.
Great. So just some quick notes real before we get going. So I just want to make sure it's clear. Feel free to ask questions. There's a Q&A section located next to the participants bar in the program, the Zoom system here. So feel free to ask questions in there. We'll monitor for those. And but yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to speak up. We welcome questions as we move throughout this presentation here. The chat function, we'll try to utilize that more for the discussions as we move forward. But so with that, move on to the next slide here. So the presentation, the overview, the main purpose of this is just to highlight some of the pump offerings we have with our program. Quick introduction on the program as well, if you're a little new to it or curious what we do or how what is the program, we'll just briefly cover that as well. Then we'll talk about the water pump upgrades that we have, also with VFDs and some other offerings we have related to irrigation in the ag sector with our program. We'll also cover some how to apply, financing options that might be available, and then we'll have a contact and Q&A discussion point towards the end. So once again, any questions come up, feel free to use the Q&A, and with that, we'll start with the introduction here. So what is our program? So this program is TRC's, our company's TRC. We run the AESAP program, which is Agricultural Energy Savings Action Plan, the AESAP program. We are a program that was awarded through PG&E, so we work very closely with PG&E. We often say we're like an extended hand of PG&E, so you can know that you're in good hands working with us. We're working contracted directly with PG&E. We were awarded the contract to help give out incentives and offer energy efficiency support, specifically for the ag sector for PG&E customer base. So we serve all the segments in the ag sector. So which segments are those? So that would be like crop production, indoor growing, so controlled environmental horticulture like greenhouses, dairy and livestock. We also serve the breweries, wineries, and distilleries sector. So those are all the major customer sectors that we serve in PG&E's territory. So if you're a PG&E customer, you're working with a PG&E customer that pays a PG&E bill, whether it's gas or electric, either one, our program can help serve and support that through PG&E. So just a couple notes. What we do is we really offer some streamlined services, and we help calculate savings and process the incentives. That's the biggest portion of what is most interest to customers, is being able to hand out those incentives and helping projects, with financial support. We also offer some demand side management support. So whether that's like helping enroll in demand response programs through PG&E or other programs that could help save on your utility bill or save energy in general, we help with that as well. And one important note I want to highlight is just the fact that our services are at no cost to the customer. So we don't ever cost the customer anything. Our services are here free to offer to customers. Our interest is just helping customers do energy efficiency upgrades at their sites. So next slide here is some more details on our program. So some of the core things that we do is we do deep technical studies. So a majority of our staff are engineers. We'll go out, we'll identify energy savings measures at a facility. So even if the customer might not know what they want to do, or they're just kind of interested in maybe trying to find some ideas of how they can save energy, that's where we're here to help. So we have staff that can go out, meet with a customer, walk the facility, find opportunities. But more importantly than that, like a lot of times customers know or have interest in what they could do if they had the financial means or support to do that. So we like to talk with decision makers or plant personnel, facility personnel, whoever that might be, that is very familiar with the site, so that we can help identify some opportunities that are already on your mind or on the customer's mind that they might want to do. But outside of that, we also can definitely offer recommendations and support. But we want to do stuff that's interest to the customer. So we want to do stuff that makes sense. We do the savings verification. So we do the verification of the installations, and we also do financial incentives. So that's the biggest part of a lot of interest with customers, is actually cutting customer checks for incentives and rebates that help offset some of the costs for those upgrades. Like we mentioned, that's electric and gas incentives that are available for that. We also do financing for projects. So there's an on-bill financing program through PG&E that we work closely with that offers 0% interest loans that gets repaid on your bill through the energy savings, which is very popular in the recent years. So there's also other financing options available if the measure or might not qualify for on-bill financing. There's other financing options too that we help guide you through at competitive interest rates or very low, or if any, interest rates. So with that, that's the introduction, quick spiel that I wanted to just kind of get out there. But if there's any other questions that come up, feel free to let us know or raise your hand in the Q&A, and we're happy to answer. So.
Andy, there's a question about the tier 1 rebate option, and I think this is regarding the VFD offerings.
Yeah, we will get to those. Glenn, maybe we'll take a mental note on this question. When we get to that section, sure. We'll talk through this. That makes sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So we will definitely get to that, Craig. Water pump upgrade. So a main reason we wanted to have this webinar here was just to highlight a new measure that was added to our program. This measure officially launched on October 12th of late last year. The measure code, it's listed on our rebate catalog. It's SWWP004. You don't have to remember that. It's clear in the rebate catalog what that code is. But what this does is, in years past, we didn't really have a streamlined mechanism to offer rebates for replacing pumps. Outside of some prior programs that were there. So what this allows is an actual prescriptive deemed rebate for any time you replace a pump. So by clean water pump, we mean it's not a wastewater pump, it's just a pump. So any of the ag sector pumps, whether it's even commercial, industrial sectors, also this measure works for. But specifically it's for pump replacements that are 250 horsepower or less. It actually goes down to really small horsepower ranges. So even some of those smaller pumps, there's rebates available for that as well. The purpose of the rebate is to reduce the incremental cost of that premium efficiency pump. So the intent of this rebate is you're going to be replacing a pump anyway. Let's offer a rebate to help you go to a pump option that's more efficient. So the rebate option there, the rebate that's tied to that, it's not a huge rebate, but it's a relative rebate value that offsets that incremental cost difference for a more premium efficiency pump. This measures for replacing pumps or new pumps. So like if you're putting in a new well and you're putting in a new pump, you're going to put in a pump anyway. So we're going to offer a rebate to help you go for that more efficient pump. You have to replace a pump as well. Maybe you do a pump test or you pull the pump and you determine you have to actually replace it instead of rebuild or whatever it might be. That's also the opportunity where this rebate is here to help offset that cost. So once again, this is a new offering as of late last year that it was recently rolled out. So like I mentioned, this is for new construction or new installations, new pumps. So installing a new pump, this will qualify for that, as well as replacement. Normal replacement, they call it, is the application type where you're going to replace a pump anyway. The type of pumps that this work for are rotodynamic pump classes, as shown here. There's end suction frame mount. I won't read them off. You can see them here, the four main types, but in general, this encompasses and covers most of the clean water pumps that we see in the ag sector there. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions yet, but that's a quick highlight of this water pump upgrade. The next slide here, we'll go into this a bit more detail. So some additional summaries on the pump replacement measure. So the way the rebate's structured and how it operates is that it has a pump energy index tiers associated with the pump. So they go by values of 0.02 for each tier. So what's the pump energy index? What is that? How does that, just a quick explanation of what that is. So the pump energy index is the energy demand relative to what a standard efficiency pump offering, what is considered a standard efficiency pump. So an example would be like if a PEI, a pump efficiency index of a 0.9 value, what that means is it's consuming 90% of that standard pump comparison. So it's using 10% less energy of that relative. So that's what the PEI value represents, is a 0.9 would be 90% of what is considered that standard pump efficiency value or operation. So there is a Hydraulic Institute energy rating website. It's er.pumps.org, as shown here, that you can search by a pump model number, or we can help search. So if you have a pump or you're working with a customer or you are a customer and you're considering pump options, we would want to encourage to go to this website or come to us and we can help you determine if the pump you're considering or the couple of pumps you're considering is what the relative rebate or if it qualifies. But you would search the basic model number here as shown on the snapshot of the website, and you would be able to put in a pump model number there and search and it would tell you what that PEI value is. And then once you have that, it's on that energy index website. And then you could go to a rebate catalog and see what the relative rebate is based on the horsepower size and that PEI value. So
also, pump manufacturers who participate in this program should be able to steer you in the right direction with regard to pumps that have qualified.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we're trying to do is we really want to partner and work with those vendors and installers to make this as easy as possible. So if you are a vendor or installer that are working with customers, if you have common pumps or something that you're wanting to advertise to customers, like if we can help ahead of time to try to vet those pumps out, make sure they qualify, so it just makes it easy. Then we know which pumps, when you're reaching out to those customers and installing them, we know they qualify for rebate. Then we can we want to help there to make sure we're offering that. In addition to that, like you mentioned before too, is like if unsure or if the pump contact might not know, we're here to help too and to be able to look that up and find those. So yeah, anything else on that, Glenn, or?
No, that's it.
Okay. Next slide here is a snapshot from our rebate catalog. I know it's a lot of words and it's a little small depending on your screen size, but what this is showing is there's a measure code. So the SWWP004, that's the measure code is called. And there's relative measure descriptions depending on the pump horsepower side and that PEI value. So what this shows here is there's also variable and and constant speed pump options. So there's a breakdown of rebate ranges. So it ranges up to $20 per horsepower, depending on what that PEI value and the size of the pump. So you can see here, for example, I'll just look at the one on the bottom. So a water pump upgrade with a PEI of 0.93, that's constant speed without a VFD, between 50 and 250 horsepower to have $2. And then the other ones will range based on the efficiency and the tiers that they're at. So in summary, again, there's different rebate levels depending on the PEI value as well as the horsepower rating. and it covers constant speed to constant speed pump upgrades, as well as variable to variable speed upgrades. But if you're going from like a constant speed to a variable speed when that pump upgrade takes place, there is a separate VFD rebate we're also going to cover that would be able to help there. So,
Hey, Andy, we have
yeah.
a hand raised. Nancy.
Yeah. I don't know if they're muted but feel free to ask if you have a question. Looks like you're muted right now, Nancy.
Okay.
Oh, there we
go. Just need to get clear. The pumps need to be Hydraulic Institute tested and certified at a particular efficiency rating, manufacturer's rating for efficiency. Is that what I'm hearing?
They need to be on that Hydraulic Institute list. So if you have a pump model number and you search for it on there and you can't find it, it is a bit case sensitive. So I would just suggest if you're having trouble finding that pump, they're updating that list constantly. We actually get a weekly updated list for it, a separate list so they are constantly updating it. But if you have a model or you're interested in a specific model and maybe you're having trouble finding it, maybe we could try searching it on our own internal list that since it's a little bit case sensitive to see if it's on there, but it does need to be on that list somewhere in that database in order to qualify for the rebate. That's the way the work paper, the deemed rebate work paper is structured.
Okay, and do we still have to pay HI to access their
No,
data?
No, this is yeah, sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
no, it's open to the public, so.
Okay,
Like Andy
great.
said, it's a little sensitive to how it references things, and we can help you sort through that if you don't find it and you expect that it should be on the list.
But yeah,
it's kind of like an Energy Star label,
Right,
like a refrigerator or a hot water heater.
Here's
right.
what the website looks like. I have it up here. If I click that link, here's what it is, and you can put in a model number and search, and it'll pull up results. And this is open to anyone on the web. So as long as we search the pump, you're able to find it. You can click on a pump, and it'll actually give you like the energy rating level, and as you can see here, related to it. And we'll talk through this in a little more detail in a second. But yeah, it's open to
and is there, what is the minimum pump efficiency rating that a pump has to be considered a premium efficient pump? Is it like 90% or something? So the pump manufacturer efficiency ratings,
I'm seeing up to 0.93, right, Glenn?
Yeah, 0.93 is the lowest.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
A PEI of 1 is a standard pump based on DOE regulations. For these incentive calculations, they assume that a standard pump, or what's typically purchased, is approximately 0.94 or 95.
Okay.
So the savings is relative to that. That's why if you get a 0.93 PEI pump, it has a relatively small incentive compared to a 0.88. Because that's relative to a baseline assumption of 0.94 or 0.95, depending on the size of the pump.
And once again, the purpose of this is to help customers or installers, whoever might be that's purchasing and installing pumps, to go with options that are more efficient than otherwise would have. So sometimes, often there is generally a larger cost for those more efficient pumps. And the purpose of this is to offset that cost to help encourage folks to go with those more efficient pumps. And this, like I said, this is where you're replacing a pump. You're going to put in a pump anyway. So trying to just help give out those rebates, incentives, and ultimately the customer will see energy savings. So it's kind of a win-win, right? I mean, trying to offset that cost and also saving energy on the utility bill.
Right. So, for years, I've been, trying to encourage our clients and PG&E's customers to not just to grab the same old pump off the shelf and throw it in, which is pretty common, pretty typical, like, okay, here's what they did. We've got this paperwork and data to go ahead with this. So just do the same thing we've always done. And, trying to let them know there are more efficient pump designs out there lately. But it's just been that there were so few and far between and so hard to find out which brands and pumps they were. So learning to work with this would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, and like we want to make this as easy as possible for everyone. That's why we're here to help. So if you have troubles or it's just like, oh man, this is it's hard to, because even I've experienced it where you search a model and it's case sensitive, hard to find, whatever it might be. Just know at the end we have our contact information. When in doubt, at the end of the day, we want to make sure there's a pump model number on an invoice and that it qualifies ideally before they purchase. We make sure it qualifies. We highly encourage that. But if we have a model number, we're here to help to make sure it qualifies and see what levels are there. We want to, like we said, make as little work as possible for whether you're a installer, a vendor, or a customer.
Great. Yeah. Like we see about, 1,000, 1,200 pumps a year when doing the pump testing. So always want to be able to give our clients, PG&E's customers, the rebate options. It's, it's a big part of it. So I'm really happy it's here.
And the process of this is we just get you don't have pre-approval before, basically we just need the invoice after the fact. So it's pretty streamlined. So as long as we know they're qualifying, as long as we get a copy of those invoices, we can help cut those rebate checks for those customers. So
Cool.
if we could work together further, if you want to reach out after this, we love to work with you and see how we can better streamline this for when you're offering stuff for customers.
Right. Yeah. Always before, it's just been a before and after pump test and, anyway, yes, we can discuss that.
Yeah, just the PI value. You don't necessarily need that pump test. So.
Okay.
I think we had another hand up from Hunter. I'm seeing here. Hunter, you had a question? Okay. We'll move forward. I guess, Glenn, I think you were going to cover this a bit, but we're just going to go over an example of, say, like a pump example and how you look up the model and stuff like that, right, Glenn?
Yeah. So, for verification that it qualifies, obviously we need the model number, and ideally, having a copy of the spec sheet, as this example shows, provides not only the information for the model number and the PEI classification, but it provides other information like the horsepower, the number of stages, things that kind of inform us as to what the existing conditions are and what's being proposed. So this is very important for us to get. This is an example where we looked up in the database for the qualifying pumps, and we identified the 5 TMH series that did have an eligible pump that was certified by the Hydraulic Institute. Interestingly, the larger pump series were not, and I'm not sure if that's just a matter of them working through the certification process, or if there was other reasons. But this is information that if it can be provided with the invoice, is always helpful, and obviously, you're going to want to get this for your customer as well. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know I pulled it up already before, but once again, an example would be here. So say if you go in Hydraulic Institute, and for that example that was on the screen, you search the model number shown, you can see the various models here, and then you could click it and see what the pump efficiency index is. So I just wanted to highlight that again real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yeah. Anything else on this, or?
No, so we have an invoice example that's for the 60 horsepower pump. So if you want to go to that.
I think the next slide just kind of goes over the UR energy rating and what the descriptions mean.
Yeah, so this is what I was saying. This is like the Energy Star rating. So this is just, it's pretty straightforward. It provides the information of the brand, the motor, the speed, the pump type, the type of control. As we had talked about, this rebate offering is for pumps that are constant speed to constant speed or variable speed to variable speed. So if you were to be doing the pump as well as a drive on an existing system, there may be an opportunity to also get the VFD rebate in addition to claim savings for the pump efficiency that's existing, which would be constant speed to constant speed. And then in this example, the nice thing, like we were talking about, the pump energy index just provides a sound reference for everyone to understand how these pumps compare to other efficiencies or other systems and offerings. And then it simplifies the process for offering rebates and verifying performance.
Move on here to our invoice example.
So this will be an example invoice, something we would need submitted with the rebate application. So there's the Pentair Berkeley. The basic model number it's a 5TMH-375, 375 being the flow rate of each stage. It's a 60 horsepower design. That was that top curve. If you want to go back to that real quick. So there's a 60 horsepower 13 stage pump. And we would use that horsepower to estimate the savings. So go back, please. And then the invoice, if available, it would be preferred to have the individual pump cost itemized, as well as other information. In this case, it looks like in this case they may be pursuing a pump replacement as well as a VFD upgrade or retrofit. In which case, here's a proposed VFD that meets the harmonic requirements. And then we also need to know, is this a normal replacement? Is it new construction? Is it constant speed, variable speed? That's what we use to define the pump, the PEI. And this can be noted in the invoice or provided via an email.
Yeah, I would highlight the biggest key is the model number on the invoice. If it makes the process a little bit faster, more streamlined if these details are on the invoice. But if not, when we get say an invoice for us to process, like we will have someone on our team that reaches out and we'll be asking these questions. So is this, is this a new pump? Is this a replacement pump? And we'll get that information. But if you are working with a lot of customers or with customers and if we had this level of detail on there, it just would make things go a little bit more smoothly. But just know that, we can still get this information outside of being on the, it's not necessarily a requirement outside of the pump model number, but it does definitely help to have like the cost itemized and then these other details on there, or at least provided in an email or something.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Oh, I see a question here in the chat too about pictures. We do have a installation inspection requirement. So if there is a requirement for there, we'll reach out. We also have staff that can go out and take a picture, but if there is a picture that's available that could be snapped when you're submitting with a copy of the invoice, that would be ideal. No problem. Glenn, anything else on this one or?
No, just like you said, the important thing is to have that model number so that if you're not able to provide the spec sheet, that we're able to download it from the Hydraulic Institute database and or the customer's website.
Yeah, and if this is one where, say you're going to want to see doing a common pump and it's going to be like, you'll probably have a lot of these. Like if we want to make it as like streamlined as possible to process these for your customer contacts, if you had the PEI value already because you've done this on a prior project or you've looked it up and confirmed it, like if we know that value, whether it's constant, variable, and you kind of add the details, whether in like an email when you're submitting it or on that invoice, if it's not too much trouble, whatever it is, as long as we have that documentation, we know exactly everything we need to be able to fill out that application and get that sent for signature quite quickly. So once again, don't want to make more work for you guys, but it would help make things go a little bit faster. Otherwise, we're happy to reach out and try to gather that information.
And to Andy's point about the sensitivity of the model number, the basic model number is the 5TMH-375. That doesn't tell you how many stages or horsepower it is. So if you just use that, that'll give you the full list of that series. And you'd have to specify the horsepower because we use that horsepower to estimate the rebate. But there's also a manufacturer's model designation. So each manufacturer has their own way of their own nomenclature for referring to these pumps. And in this case, it's a 5TMH-60-375, which indicates the number of stages and size of the motor, the horsepower.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned it prior, but just so you know, in addition to a copy of the presentation, this is also going to be recorded and will be available we have a YouTube channel for our program where this will be there for the resource if like you want to go back and review the walkthrough requirements. And then also we'll have some stuff on our website as well, but it will be available for other folks, or if you want to forward it to other people that weren't able to join, that will also be an option. So, yeah. All right. Well, if any other questions come up on the pump replacement, feel free to reach out, but I'm just going to quickly show how to find that rebate catalog if you're not aware. So our rebate catalog is on our website. Our website is, let me pull it up here, have it open here. It's agagenergysavings.com. This is what our website looks like. In addition to that link that's in the presentation, if you want to just find it through our website, if it's easier, it's agagenergysavings.com. If you go to types of incentives and you scroll down here, in addition to a breakout of the rebate list, you just hit view rebate catalog. That is the PDF, like the sort of the rule book for our program, so to speak, of the requirements for in our different offerings for our rebate. So this is what the rebate catalog looks like. And you can see the contents here. You go grab down to the where is it? The clean water pump upgrade. And then it has the rebate tiers as well as the requirements here showing that, the Hydraulic Institute database requirement and the type of pumps that are eligible, things like that. So that's how you find it. Once again, agagenergysavings.com and go to types of incentives, and then the rebate catalog link is right here. We also have other stuff on our website that might be helpful as far as like the rebate process, like the time it takes, the steps. We have blogs with different, since we're on the website, we have blogs with different articles, things like that on various sectors that might be beneficial if you're interested in reading more or getting some ideas for energy upgrades. And then of course, contact us. We have our email and a contact form that you can reach out to us on. So that's how you find the rebate catalog. And also, like I said, here's the direct link to that rebate catalog, that PDF there. Any questions on the pump replacement measure? If not, we'll move on to the next topic, which is the VFD, pump VFD offering. Just trying to take a look on the Q&A. Okay, I think we're seeing questions on VFDs, so let's move on to that topic. So another very popular measure with our program and successful one we've had is that's a pump VFD rebate. The rebate tiers, by the way, the rebates have changed a bit. We upped the rebate for the standard tier up from I think it was $40 to $60 per horsepower. So right now, the different tiers are $60, $70, and $90 per rated horsepower. So depending on the type of VFD, you can get up to $60 to $90 per horsepower. So for a large VFD, I mean, up to 400, we get some pretty large VFDs. You can have pretty substantial rebate. Also, there's some great energies. Obviously, the energy savings related to it can be quite substantial too. So an example on this one here is a 150 horsepower well pump. They saved almost 40,000 kWh of energy, about $9,000 in cost savings. So they got a $9,000 rebate in that scenario. And it was about a 2-year payback for that, just under the 2-year payback for that customer. So it's an example there. The next page goes over those harmonic requirement changes that took place mid last year. And I think we'll get some questions or have some questions on that. But we wanted to highlight that once again. So it was June 1st of last year. There was a new harmonics requirement that was put in place with a utility on requirements for VFDs to help aid against like harmonic, dirty power, harmonic distortion, things like that. So these are the requirements for the harmonic filters that we just wanted to present here. So if it's less than or equal to 75 horsepower, a line side component 3% AC line reactor or DC bus equivalent or front end is required. So what does that mean if you're going to submit a rebate? We need the vendor or manufacturer specs. It must be provided showing that the requirements met, some sort of documentation to show that, whether that's specification or some other sort of documentation, but that would be the requirement for less than or equal to 75 horsepower. For greater than 75 horsepower, it's required to meet the IEEE requirements as linked here. And then the documentation, one of these 3 options must be provided when submitting it. So whether, I won't necessarily read them off verbatim here, but they can see there's 3 different options here that you can provide that shows. There was a bit of a grace period allowing exceptions last year for people that purchased VFDs prior to 6/1. we wanted to make sure it was fair to customers. Like if they already bought the VFD, we shouldn't penalize them. We're waiting to install them. So there was a grace period throughout the second half of last year to allow us to still process those, even if they weren't able to meet these requirements. But at the start of this year, PG&E, the utility is not wanting to allow those exceptions any further. The only instance where maybe it might be allowed is if you're waiting on a power upgrade for a power to be activated, which might have delays outside of your control. There might be a mechanism there for us. There's probably a mechanism there for us to get an exception on this because you've been waiting on maybe like that power upgrade or something like your SAID activation. So know that there is an option for an exception if for us to review it. No guarantees, but there is a process that will be reviewed, and if it's a good case to be made, hopefully have an approval there to allow to meet that, be able to still honor that rebate. Outside of that, if VFD was purchased after 6/1, they've had the power upgraded. We did everything we could, sending out the notification on the IEEE requirements, and it's been on our website since 6/1. We want to make sure that we're adhering towards these requirements that utility wants us to put in place. So we need to make sure that these requirements are being met. Glenn, did I miss anything or anything you might want to cover on the harmonics requirements?
No, but we can answer I think you just answered the question about VFD requirements. So in that example, we talked about an active front end or a 3% AC line reactor or DC bus equivalent. And so that would be an example of a less than 75 horsepower pump. On the question regarding the retirement of tier 1, the tier 1 wasn't retired per se, but what it did do is that it allowed for modifications to a drive by adding a filter or purchasing a low harmonic VFD without complying with all requirements from the ITRC spec sheet. So tier 2 and tier 3 also require less than 5% total harmonic distortion for VFDs over 75 horsepower. So those requirements were existing already for the tier 2 and 3 because they're specified in the ITRC specifications.
And the rebate's higher, obviously, for the tier 2 and 3. So if it meets those requirements for the, we want to try to give the largest rebate possible for the customer. So.
Right, that's correct.
Just take a quick look at the questions here. So I think you addressed Craig's.
Did that answer your question, Craig?
Yeah. Okay, if not, or if you want to add any other questions in the chat, feel free to do that if you're not.
We have a hand raised from Nancy.
Oh, hey, Nancy. I think you're muted. Hey, Leslie, are we able to unmute people or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
so
there you
sorry,
are.
so
I see
sorry.
We hear you now.
So when you're talking about a filter, what specifically is that filter? Are we looking at capacitors? Are we looking at something to reduce heat? What
It's
are,
to reduce total harmonic distortion.
right? So it's called a filter?
It's called a harmonic filter.
Okay, so it's a specific harmonic filter. Okay.
And Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, but certain VFDs have built-in that meet this requirement already. Not all of them, some of them do, right? Some might not. So there's an option of adding the filter or going with the VFD that meets those requirements. Is that?
So there's a number of ways you can reduce your total harmonic distortion below 5%, and capacitors are one of them. But for the tier 1, where they're still offering the standard 6-pulse VFD, offering it for the standard 6-pulse VFD, but you have to install the filter either in the panel or in a separate panel adjacent to the VFD, and that will meet the line side compliance for IEEE 519. Or there's also manufacturers also sell low harmonic VFD products that are manufactured to meet that requirement. Or to truly comply with IEEE 519, you would need a certification from a registered electrical engineer showing that at the point of common coupling, that the harmonics, meet that requirement, meets the specific requirement for that system.
but we wanted to have options to make it as easy as possible to show that the effort's being made to have a low, a low like harmonic distortion VFD put in. So like we want to have those other options there. And we also try to up the rebate for that standard tier to help offset that cost as much as we possibly could. There's certain limits to how high a rebate can be based on the work paper, the way it's designed. And we have it up against the highest value we possibly can. So while it may or may not cover that full cost of that difference, we're trying to do everything we can to help make that as easy as possible, or at least alleviate some of that extra cost there.
Right. I mean, it's important, you know, when we see a problem with the harmonics, it's a big deal, you know, so this isn't, it's great. I mean, I'm just really happy to see this.
Right. And I think the message needs to be that, you know, there's going to be greater regulatory requirements from the utilities to comply with these standards moving forward. So those things are in development. So although there may not be much teeth in them now, you know, there will be in the future.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've watched power factors drop over the last 35, 40 years. It's just horrific what's in what the motor load on the system's doing. Anyway, I digress. Please go on.
Oh, Glenn, also, if it is now already in place, or maybe it will be, but like I think we're saying is for new services, like new pumps going in. I mean, these requirements are already part of that new service.
Right. I think they're in the green book and in Rule 2.
Yeah. So this stuff actually, I think, is already required for new services for customers. So, but you know, obviously you can add a VFD to existing pumping and add it on there. So, but they're basically extending this not just to those new pump installations, but also for retrofits, just to make sure we're not, you know, creating more issues on the grid.
Right. Yeah. What they're working on is the regulatory guidelines for that. So that's what's being, you know, ironed out right now, but
Yeah,
it is coming.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
I saw Bob's question about horticultural lighting. No, sorry, Bob, this is just a pump specific discussion today. But if you have questions on lighting, feel free to reach out to me or us after this. I'll have our contact information on the deck. I don't already have it. Glenn, it looks like I have a question from Scott about a comprehensive power quality study. I don't know if you're aware of.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, these areas that you're talking about are exactly why, you know, there's this momentum to implement these new requirements. There's certain areas that are obviously worse than others, but with more and more drives going in, more and more solar, you know, it's only the problem is only going to get worse if they don't address it now.
Right. Yeah, the more motor load on a line, the more inefficient motor load on a line.
Right.
Yeah, just
Right.
Yeah, and the thing that pains us, and we feel for the customers, when we get applications for VFDs and they're not meeting the requirements, we have to turn those rebates away. It's frustrating, and we hate to see when that happens. So we're trying to do everything we can to help educate and get the word out there and make this as easy as possible to show that you know, requirements being met, or prior to deciding on what VFD option might go in. So if this is your first time hearing this and you're working with customers to put in VFDs, yeah, if there's more questions, we just want to make sure we're going with something that qualifies. So if we can help vet that ahead of time before they pull the trigger and buy that equipment, I mean, we want to do everything we can to do that to help out the customer as best we can.
Right. It's really important to get ahead of it. It just leaves such a sour taste in our clients and PG&E's customers' mouths when things don't go as they anticipated they might. So yeah, definitely. Really good info. It's really important that we do this. You know, like I say, I've over the years I've worked with PG&E's pump efficiency program, we've watched so much more load and the power factors dropping off significantly. I mean, I remember when I was in the field pump testing in the 90s, 80s and 90s, you rarely saw any power factor below 90%. And now it's almost all below 90%. You know, it's like, definitely, all that heat buildup on the lines and people running VFDs even much less efficiently, much lower hertz than they should be, running them down to where the pumps are really running in efficiency. So the result of that is heat resistance in every aspect of your system,
Yeah. I
Anyway.
also want to mention, thank you. I also want to mention that if there's any specific power quality questions or concerns you might have, we want to get you in touch directly with PG&E to help answer those questions. And there's people that we can help guide you towards that can help with that. So outside of just our team, we will help get you in touch with the appropriate person that this is like their wheelhouse, what they're due, right? So if you have any that need or have those questions, please reach out to us and we'll make sure we get you in the right hands through the account representative or some other account support service that can help answer those questions. So I just want to make sure that's clear too.
And I can respond to Neil's question. So that third option, I agree with your point about, being able to get access to that, that point of common coupling. We don't anticipate that anyone's going to pursue that path, although it is, it's a viable option per code for the ICEE or IEEE standard. But it's costly and it's difficult to get all the information. So we kept it in there for completeness, but it's our expectation that if people are going to comply, they're going to take a standard 6-pulse VFD and add a harmonic filter to it. Would be the most common way to comply with this requirement, or buy the low harmonic VFD product, which would probably cost a little bit more, but would still comply.
We'll definitely have some time at the last 5 or 10 minutes of the call to answer any other questions. I'm just going to breeze through these other how to apply slides, and then we'll open it up for general discussion. So, but this great feedback and discussions is awesome. So next slide here just covers the rebate process. Like I showed you, this is also on our website, but the general process, like once we have the application with all the information we need to process the project, so look those, whether it's a replacement or new installation, things like that, and variable versus constant, and we have the pump model number. Once we have everything we need, and we'll submit an application and we'll have it all filled out for customer signature. And then we'll cut you the rebate check, cut the customer or whoever's signed over as the payee. We can even have the incentive or rebate signed over to someone other than the customer. It's just the customer has to sign and allow for that. But if that's of interest, accept rebates in lieu of the customer to help maybe sell VFD or offset that cost ahead of time. We could do that too. But just know, like once we get that information we need, it's typically 1 to 2 months by the time we get everything we need in order to cut them a rebate check. So that's typically the turnaround time on those projects there. If it's not on that rebate catalog, I know I put it up here, but if like you're looking at a measure and you don't see an offering here in this rebate catalog, it could qualify for a custom incentive. These quote unquote rebates are what's called prescriptive deemed rebates in California, where there's predefined energy savings and rebate values for certain qualified measures. Those are measures that you do not need a pre-approval for in order to purchase equipment. If they're not on here though, you still could get a custom incentive for a different incentive offering that's there. So that's what custom incentives are. If it's not on a deemed rebate list, there's still an option for us to provide an incentive, but those are projects where we have to calculate the energy savings, do a study, submit it in for review and get approval through the utility and potentially the CPUC before you can make it before making that decision or purchasing equipment on if you're going to move forward with the project. So there's other incentives. If there's gas or electric savings, depending on the measure, it could qualify for what's called a custom incentive. Just know the timeline on those take longer because it has a pre-review and requirement and approval process for that. So outside of custom and deemed, we also have those financing options we're talking about. So on-bill financing, you can't do deemed rebates with on-bill financing, but there is financing options available for projects. Like we mentioned, 0% interest loans through PG&E on the on-bill financing. That's where the energy savings pay off the loan on your bill at 0% interest. Very popular program recently with customers. There's loan periods up to 10, loan periods up to 120 months, and loan ranges actually can go up to $4 million with exception approval. So some pretty large loans that are there for some large upgrades if they qualify. So some good options there. If it doesn't qualify for on-bill financing, there are some requirements there, like paying your bills on time, things like that. There's also a Go Green California state-run program that offers financing at competitive, not 0% interest rate, but competitive interest rates. You can also do new construction and even cannabis projects on these loads where OBF might not allow that. So there's some other options. Another thing that we've seen gain popularity lately is what's called the Farm Credit Leasing Program. So if you go farmcredit.com, there's also other financing options available for like the ag sector. So rebate process, we basically, if you can just contact us, give us a copy of that invoice with the implementation and any other supporting documentation, we'll go ahead and fill out that paperwork and send it to either the customer or whoever's the interface with that customer, and we'll have those signed and we'll process it. So there's only two forms. There's an application or program participation agreement, it's called, and also a contractor certification form. Those are the only two forms you need for doing these pump projects that we need signed by a customer in order to process the rebate. And we can get those to you, and we'll fill these out for you and fill it out so that the customer can just simply sign it. The HVAC related contractor permit requirements shouldn't apply for these pump related projects. Those are just more for HVAC projects, but we can check and screen for those. We will check and screen for those. So last slide, contact information here. Andy Gustafson, that's me once again. I'm the program manager, got my phone number, personal email if you ever want to reach out to me directly. We got Glenn's contact info here. So if you want to blast us directly, feel free to do it. We do not mind. And we also have our general mailbox inquiry in our website there, Ag Energy Savings, or the Ag Energy Savings at TRC Company's email that you can reach out to. So with that, I did want to leave the last 10 minutes or so for any questions we might have missed. So I will stop talking and we'll look at the Q&A, and feel free to unmute and ask any questions that you might have. So actually, I'll leave this up in case you're writing that down. Glenn, Leslie, you happen to see any other questions? I might have.
Yeah, there are a few questions in the Q&A section.
Oh, Q&A, there it is. Okay. Oh, all right, I scroll down. I see one here from Mike. Working irrigation, we install a lot of pumps and VFDs for growers. How long would this process take, and when should we apply for the rebate? Like that diagram was trying to show there, once we have the information we need, it's usually 1 to 2 months once we have for us to process, and you get an incentive or the rebate check mailed to that payee, that customer, whoever's receiving the rebate check. Once we have the information needed, 1 to 2 months. We say 1 to 2 because sometimes it can be a little bit faster. Sometimes it might take, at the most like 2 months or something around there, with rare exceptions, but 1 to 2 months. So when do we apply for the process? If you're unsure if the product, whether it's the pump or the VFD, qualifies, let's start that conversation now before customers start purchasing those, or as early as possible, just to make sure if you're working with those customers that they're going with an option that we know will be meet those requirements. So if it's a pump model number that you think you'll probably sell, or a series of model numbers you want us to try to vet out on this database to help you see if it qualifies, please reach out to us now and we'll see which ones work. Other than that, if you have invoices now that were installed, and we can go back 60 days, if you have a rebate, an invoice, a paid invoice for a pump or VFD that you think might qualify based on the requirements, you can send us those invoices now and we can still process them as long as within the 60-day. There's a 60-day requirement to, once the equipment is purchased or it's operational, like up and running, like the panels hooked up, the equipment's running as expected. That's where whatever's latest of those. So typically it's when it's operational, that's where that 60-day clock starts ticking. So if you have a paid invoice and you know that pump was installed within 60 days and operational within 60 days, send those to us now. We could probably still process those as long as it meets those requirements. So you can submit and start that process as early as possible, but we want to be able to cut the rebate check for that until we know it's operational and we get those paperwork signed, things like that. So does that help answer your question, Mike? That was the first part of your question. You're just saying you're new to the process here. Looks like the question went away, but I think that answered your question. Hope that helps. If not, feel free to reach out. Any other?
We had Scott Matthews with his hand raised, but I'm not sure if the question has been answered.
That was related to the comprehensive power quality study.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. Glenn, do you happen to know, or anyone else?
Yeah, I think Christine's on the line. She's more familiar with that effort, but I know that they have been looking at these different areas in the Central Valley where there's poor power quality and trying to mitigate harmonics. So they're working on a couple of efforts to run some tests, and again, this is all part of the movement to incentivize VFDs with harmonic filters so that we can start to mitigate this problem.
Gentlemen, my name is Dan Peters, and I'm actually coming up as Scott Matthews, so I'm the one who submitted the question. Sorry about that. He had asked me to attend the meeting in lieu of him because I work in this area. I've been working in the Western United States for applying VFDs to agricultural pump applications for close to 20 years.
Oh, awesome.
So I have an incredible amount of experience, but I think my question would be better taken offline or in another venue.
Yeah, you got both our emails and phone numbers here.
I do.
Yeah,
I already captured it.
I was just gonna say, if you want to reach out to us, we could schedule a meeting invite, and we can schedule time, whether it's a half-hour call, hour, whatever we want, thinks appropriate, and we can talk and help answer any questions. But we are very eager to partner with folks such as yourself and others to try to make this as easy as possible. Like if it's something we can do to streamline the way we cut these rebates for customers to help you guys also be more successful, sell more equipment. That's what we're very interested in doing that too. So if we can help with that, we'd love to.
My question is, I'm basically a grunt. Okay, so I don't deal with a lot of the monetary sides of it, but I deal with the very practical part of the actual installation, operation, and documentation, and then further into troubleshooting when there comes up and there are problems. So that's where I have a unique perspective on all of this, and that's
well, we'd like to hear from you about that. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we like.
Yeah, I'm afraid it'll get too far in the weeds for most people at this point, because you have to deal with a lot of electrical theory.
Well, I know Glenn and I love that because we're engineers, and I personally find that interesting. So if we could, if we want to schedule that follow-up call, especially because we only have a couple minutes left, but yeah, we'd be very interested in doing that.
All right, sir. Thank you.
We have two hands raised. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in there. So thank you. This is Christine Forster, and kind of to Dan's question. We partner, PG&E partners with TRC for our agricultural customers on energy efficiency programs. And then of course that starts growing all these arms and tentacles and into other programs. So Andy, pull me in, Dan, pull me in. If it starts going down into those weeds, I've been in the weeds for a minute now on harmonics in general. So it's somewhere I have operated a lot in the last couple of years. So I'm happy to support. So if there are power quality issues, and not just from Dan, but from others on the call, get in contact with Andy and Glenn. They'll connect the dots if we need to kind of bring it to the next level from a service perspective and do some troubleshooting and some diagnostics on our sides, in addition to hopefully utilizing the programs here that you saw today. So
And I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Christine Forrester, and also I can even just rattle off. It's Christine.Forrester@pg.com. So it's going to be a long one, so bear with me. CHRIST as in Tom, INE dot, and then Forrester is a tricky one too. F as in Frank, OR, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, ER@pg.com. And maybe Andy or Glenn, if you guys want to drop it in chat or in the notes, I'm here happy to share my contact information along with yours as needed. So
great. Yeah, thanks Christine. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Christine.
We've got a minute left. Any other questions we can
Yeah.
help?
So, yeah, I have just a quick one. When you said clean water, does that include city water departments, water districts, water agencies? Who are we talking about, clean water?
Our program, so we have certain customers that we're allowed to serve. So if, depending on the customer type, our program is specifically geared towards the agricultural sector. But if you're unsure, if you want to let us know which customer that is, we can see if we can serve them. If not, we'll let you know which program can or which program to direct you to. But I do believe that this measure is also applicable to that type of operation that you're explaining. It's open to all commercial, industrial, ag customer types. Glenn, are you aware?
Yeah, it should be eligible.
Yeah.
Right, it's something that the pump and VFD rebates have always included, although they've always been included under the agricultural programs.
It might very well be ours too. If it's an ag, I think it's the criteria is if it's an ag scheduled rate with the water district or whoever it might be, we can serve those, I think is what it was. I could check with our PG&E program manager to confirm, but I believe we can help there too. But yeah, feel free to reach out, and if for some reason we can't, we'll definitely put you in touch with someone that can. So.
Okay. Thank you.
There are a few last questions in the chat, but that takes us to time. So we can maybe answer those offline.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks again for joining. Just a quick recap. Thank you for joining. Reach out to us. Any other questions, any other topics for future webinars too? I mean, feel free to send suggestions our way. We want to try to do whatever we can to help and answer questions. But yeah, Glenn, Leslie, any other comments or?
No, thanks for joining, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Leslie. I think that's a wrap. Okay, bye everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.